Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Creative Side Up. My name is Tim Olson, and this is the show where we unpack creative minds. Today, my guest is video producer Brian Alberth. So if you were to explain what you do, how do you explain that?
What I do, that's kind of tough because it's sort of morphed over the years of being in the film industry. Or the video industry. I'm not even sure what you call it these days, but yeah. So what I'm doing right now is I'm a camera operator. So there's a lot of times I go out, do shoots where I'm operating camera, setting up shots, director of photography sometimes, depending upon the job. Sometimes I'm assistant camera operating with other higher level DPs that have been doing it for 20, 30 years, 40 years, maybe even. I'm also working as a digital imaging technician, DIT. So sometimes we're working on set. I've got a job this week in Chicago doing that. So I'll be sitting down, looking through the footage, backing up the footage, sifting through. Sometimes I'm transcoding it so it's ready to go and edit in proxy mode. So 1920 by 1080. This might be a little too much jargon. I don't know.
Getting really technical
I know.
here.
And sometimes I produce and sometimes I direct. So
I think it shows a wide range of the skill set that you have. Yep. How do you develop a skill set like that? It's taken years for you to be able to reach a point where you can say you do all these things.
Completely.
So for someone who's starting out, where do they begin? What's a good... And I guess speak from your own experience about how you started out.
Well, I think the first step is to never say no. Whenever you can, if somebody comes to you and says, hey, what are you doing this next weekend? I know you want to break into the film industry. Can you come and be a PA on set? You have to say yes. Even if it's shifting your schedule around, if it's finding a babysitter for your child, if it's telling the lady that we're going to have to go on a date night next weekend, if it's whatever it is, like rescheduling work, you have to make those changes. You have to make the effort. I can't tell you how many times I've met people, and you know me, I've been an instructor for 5 years at Madison Media Institute, where students and the younger people I shouldn't just say younger people, because it's not just younger people, but whatever age you are, you have to make the effort. You have to make the changes. Commitment, totally. You have to come in and work in, like you were saying before this interview started, that you got to show up on time.
Yeah.
That's a big thing. You heard that yesterday, and it really rings true. You have to show up on time. You have to be there. You have to show up and put 100% in. Really.
So like a big part of the process, I think, and we both work in video production. Mm-hmm. Big part of the process and creative process, not just from a technical side or a professional side, but it is just showing up. It's really showing up on time, being committed to the project, and making it happen with the team that you're doing it with.
Absolutely. You have to come in. And the thing is that you don't need to know all of the answers, because nobody does. Nobody knows all the answers on set. I can't tell you how many times I've shown up on set and it's the first time working with the camera. And these are directors of photography that are supposed to know the camera, to some extent at least. The ACs usually have prepped it at a rental house. Or sometimes it's an owner-operator, and that's great because they really know their camera. They really know it well, and so there's no confusion there. But sometimes you walk into a situation where nobody really knows the equipment, and maybe the production team should have put more time for pre-production into the day, or into the schedule. So I just say, come in, ask the questions that you need to ask. Don't act like you know everything. But then again, there is a little bit of faking it till you make it.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of that too. Those are.
Well, and I think everybody has a goal, or if you're on a project where you're fortunate enough where everyone knows what the end result is and everyone's working towards the same goal, I think there's the ability that everyone can get in the same headspace and know, okay, we need to at least get to here. And hopefully everybody's combined knowledge and skill set together will help achieve and move in that direction.
Yes, I think that's true to some extent. You do know that you might be working on a project to finish a 30-second ad, right?
Yeah.
But you may not know the steps that you're going to take to get there, depending upon your position. Only if you're the director, the producer, the DP, and a few other key roles might you know all of the steps. If you're any of those other players, you may not know. So you just have to be able to plug and play really well and work with a team and ask questions when you have to, but really just more assist. That's what a lot of the roles
You're part of the puzzle piece.
Absolutely.
You're part of the overall puzzle. You're the piece.
Absolutely. But when I come in and I'm the director, I should know where those puzzle pieces are going, right? And if you don't always need to know. You know, I'm working on a documentary right now about video stores, and we've talked about this quite a bit, where it's going and the style and the look. Those are things that you have to think about and you have to plan for, but it may not always go the way that you imagined it, right? You may step into a store and go, whoa, this is way different than what I thought it was going to be. Let's figure out how we're going to do this interview now, because I thought they said there were chairs here and there aren't, or this has a certain look. It's way darker than what I had imagined, or the photos that I saw online were. So you gotta be able to roll with it.
But in that frame, you're working on a documentary where there are so many unknowns, and yet as you begin to work on it, you're kind of framing the story in the direction that you want to take it. How are you able to move into a situation in a documentary where, you know, one part is interviews where we're lighting and we're setting up sound and kind of framing how you want it to look, but also the elements where you're actually just kind of filming as the fly on the wall type of thing. How do you kind of know where you're taking that story at that point?
I think each store, for the store that we're doing, is about the last great video stores in America, and we've been traveling a lot. We've traveled to Austin twice. We've traveled to Seattle. We've been to Tucson. We're following the people here in Madison, 4-Star Video Heaven, which is moving right now, or they actually just finished up the move at the end of 2019, early 2020, and I think each store, you get into the store and you sort of get a vibe, right? You walk in, you get a vibe of what the store is, what makes up the store, who are the people coming in. It's different every store, every city is a little bit different, and I think you also have to do pre-interviews too. I firmly believe.
Are you calling people? Are you
Absolutely.
talking to them and saying, hey, here's what I'm doing. Here's what I'm interested in getting. Is it possible for me to,
Absolutely. As the director, I think it's your responsibility to do any kind of pre-interviews, pre-talks before you get in to talk to the owners, to the people that you're going to be interviewing, people you're going to be in front of the camera, just to get a sense of what they're comfortable with. It also is nice to have some sort of personal experience with them, I guess, or conversation with them beforehand. It might make them a little bit more comfortable once you come in on the second or third time you've talked.
Is this the first film that you've actually made where it's yours? Is this your first film?
I feel like it is.
You feel like it is, or is it? Or
but then again,
were there some like college films
there
that
was
you
college
don't wanna...
films? Sure. There's, I mean, a lot of.
I should say full-length feature.
Yes.
Where you're putting in all the steps together, all the knowledge that you have on how to make a movie. You're actually doing it now.
Yeah, I feel like it's taken me about 20 years to get to this point. There's been other topics, and we just couldn't pull things together quick enough. This seems to work well because we're sort of putting this on the backs of other clients, where when I'm heading out to Seattle to shoot video for a software company for
corporate gig,
6 days, but we're only working 4 of the 6 days. Then there's the weekend in between. Well, that's the time where I can spend to go to Scarecrow Video and do the interview and do B-roll and actually tell the story of Scarecrow. Very fortunate to be able to do it that way. I was in Tucson, Arizona, doing a video for Progressive Magazine, their digital service, getting a really cool talk with Noam Chomsky. And they flew me out to do that. And so the next day, I didn't have to fly out until 6 o'clock that night. They kind of scheduled it kind of weird. So I had the entire day to myself. So I called up Casa Video, and they were totally game for me to come out there and tell their story.
And that's you being creative with your time. That's you as somebody who has a project that they're making that requires this particular project requires you to travel and tell the story around the country, because that's part of your plot. That's part of the idea behind the documentary.
Absolutely.
So you're finding a creative way to tell that story where for some it may take a bigger budget, but you found kind of a way that works for you.
Absolutely. And I'd say that for anybody that wants to get into filmmaking or documentary work, you have to do what's within your means. Don't try to shoot an epic documentary. Don't try to, not to not do it, but just know
you're going to get some of that Barbara Streisand effect. And now people are going to go make that epic documentary.
But do what you can, at first. Yeah. And going back to the other films that I've worked on, I've got the chance and the opportunity to work on the first one I did out of college was about a documentary about a power plant being built in a community that didn't want the power plant. It was called the Power versus the People, and they still built the power plant, and it was a short documentary. So I got the chance to go into people's homes, talk to them about this. That was 20 years ago. And, there's a story, I think, this waiting to be done about the power lines in West Wisconsin, Southwest Wisconsin, Driftless area, about the power lines that ATC are trying to put up right now.
Right.
The people are fighting it. But I don't think I'm going to be able to hold out on that. So I think there's stories to be done. There's stories to be told.
Yeah.
Foxconn is another story.
Yeah. So let me ask you this then. As someone who recognizes the potential for story, how do you, as an independent creator, kind of prioritize the projects that you're doing? Is this does you stacking up project or stories, does that present you with motivation to keep making more projects? So let's say you get done with the video store documentary. You say, well, I've had this other idea sitting around. No one's kind of taken the reins on that as far as we know. Now it may be my turn to go make that. Does that kind of push you forward? Is that a future where you see yourself working, where you're trying to make a film every couple years or so? Is that kind of something that inspires you?
I honestly could see, once this film is done about the video stores, I would love to be able to do, one documentary a year, just continue or whatever it times out to be. Alex Gibney does like one a year, two a year, but he has other directors working with him, other people, producers. I would love to be able to do it because I feel like there's enough stories out there.
Yeah.
It really comes down to funding, though. It comes down to finding an angel investor or somebody that believes in the cause, that you can tell a great story. Something that might have a bit of a investigative journalism background or edge to it. I think the Foxconn story is sitting there waiting to be done. Maybe somebody is working on that.
So how do you, going back to what you were first talking about not saying no, if you're having to go to investors and ask for funding to get larger films made, what can one do that doesn't require asking for funding? I mean, what kind of stuff do you keep yourself motivated with that's not just sitting on all the corporate work that you do? What are some of the fun projects that people are able to do? Because what I find is networking and working with other filmmakers, other creatives, and like you said, get out on the weekend, go film something. No one's saying that you're going to be making the best film ever. In fact, you shouldn't be. You should be out just making things to have fun so you're learning while you're doing it.
I think making art or making video, I guess, whatever way you want to put it, is it's a skill, and it depends. Like some days it's a skill, some days it's more of a release, an artistic release of just getting to play, get the equipment, get it calibrated, get it right. Get out there and play. And sometimes the equipment doesn't want to calibrate. Sometimes it doesn't want to. But guess what? You're going to learn from that experience. You're going to take that into your next job and the future jobs that you're working on. We do tons of free stuff too, pro bono work. I used to do the 48-hour Film Fest here in Madison, which is a national or international company. But in Madison, it's a lot of fun because you get your creative people together. You've got 48 hours to come up with a story from front to back, write it, cast it, shoot it.
And the thing with something like that, where really anybody can enter it, anybody can be a part of it. But what I found most rewarding about projects like the 48-hour Film Festival is the ability to meet other creatives and other filmmakers that you didn't know, and not only through working with them on, say, like your project. But when you go and see everyone else's, it's kind of inspiring to know how many creative people are around where you are.
Absolutely. And you get to look at, I mean, I will often sit down and watch the title screens at the end, or maybe not title, the credits.
Right.
But I will sit there and look at who shot this, who lit this, all that kind of stuff. Because, and sometimes it's about who wrote it. Because sometimes these scripts that, maybe the video doesn't look perfect, like lighting wise or camera wise, but the idea of the script is amazing. And that's always, it always hits home to me. And I think it hits home to most of the audiences that are going to the 48-hour Film Fest viewings, the showings that happen the week later. But yeah, I think getting out and going back to doing like free stuff, I think, I've done, the other thing I think of is working on my brother's fantasy football convention, where he doesn't
doing video work
and photography. And it's where all these football players and these, NFL, NBA, and then now he's doing the sports con. It's morphed into sports con. And so we drive down to Dallas, me and a few people that want to donate some time. And we go down to Dallas and we shoot video of this event, and there are no rules. There really are no rules as to where we can go, what we can do. And so it's a completely different beast. It's a completely different project where we can go in there with movies, with gimbals, handheld cameras, you name it.
You're shooting a variety of content.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're shooting press conferences. We're shooting, this year they had flag football game where Adrian Peterson and Ezekiel Elliott were the referees. It was fascinating and interesting, and you don't know what's happening next because the schedules change, the athletes change.
Well, that's kind of taking some of your documentary skills and putting it to good use.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to, like I said, you have to get in there and calibrate. You have to figure out how you're going to shoot something on the fly sometimes, and it sharpens your skills, but also, I think it's a great challenge. It's a great challenge,
Finding projects that are fun and also challenge you as a creative.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I want to go back a second to you saying something that I find really interesting about some days you're feeling more on the technical side of things and other days you're more wanting to express who you are as an artist.
Sure.
How do you, maybe there isn't, but how do you create a balance between those two things? Because I find, for me anyway, when you said that, it was almost like you hit it right on, because there are days when I am just deep into the technical, the information that's about anything, gear or finding a location or who I got to talk to and all this technical, tasks that you have to do in order to build your skill set. But then I find days where I'm just in an extremely creative mode where I want to just go out and film something with no agenda. I'm heading downtown with my camera. I have no idea what I'm even going to film. I'm out filming down by the lake or something. Yeah. And it's just because it's a creative expression that I need to put out there, or even just to fulfill for myself. So that's an interesting point that you bring up that I hadn't really thought about before, but it really does seem to be something that a lot of, I'd say even all creators kind of deal with. But how do you find balance in something like that?
I don't know that there is a balance so much as there is it's just on a whim, right? A lot of it is, I feel like, you and I did some camera tests when I bought a Red One with the kiddos. We brought them out. I think they were like 7 and 8, maybe. They were pretty young. And they were holding up sheets of paper of like the aspect ratios and what we were filming things at. And then I ended up cutting that to do a Die Antwoord song.
Yeah.
And it was just like, that just came out of being bored one day, but also seeing the footage again in a different light.
Right.
I think, sometimes I'll be working on a project, and you're probably the same way, where you're working on a project, it starts to feel a little stale. It starts to feel like you're not bored, but you're also just not moving anywhere with it. Or maybe you do become bored with it, and then you sleep on it.
Yeah.
And you wake up and you've got a completely different look on it, on the footage. To me, that's sometimes the most interesting ways that I like to look at things. As long as there isn't like a super tight deadline, right? A 48-hour film fest, you don't get that chance.
You don't get that chance.
You don't get a chance to sleep. You don't really get a chance to do anything other than just natural instincts, right? But I think when you're working on stuff, there was this past Thanksgiving, Halloween, we took the little one out trick-or-treating.
Yeah.
And I brought the camera with, shot 4K with the Sony A7S II. And the 4-year-old had a range of emotions that I could not have ever, expressed in any other way than video. And so,
by the way, you showed this to me.
I wanted to capture
really
this so she could see this later on, that we could sit back and laugh at this.
Well, your intention is let's go make a fun Halloween video. I don't even know if it was an intention. It was just that's standard for you to take a camera almost anywhere.
Absolutely. And sometimes I just love leaving the camera at home.
Yeah.
Or bringing the iPhone or something now. But there definitely for sure that day was a day that I almost wish I mic'd her up.
Yeah.
Just to get more, closeness with the sound.
We should explain. It started out as a great idea. I only know this because he showed me the video, but it starts out with his daughter having fun. We're going out to trick or treating to
get first candy,
first time out trick or treating, dressed as a Disney
Elsa,
character, and then it slowly becomes her just fed up with everything and breaking down and yelling and just not
emotional
having any
exhaustion.
Of it. Yeah, not
throwing the bucket, everything. So I think what I'm going to do is cut it together as a reality show trailer.
Oh my god!
As I don't know, little people going on Halloween.
It's funny us talking about this, but this is what you do. This is not out of this isn't out of nowhere for you. You do this stuff all the time. You're filming stuff that is just out of creative expression.
Absolutely. And then when you have kids, you can definitely play around with that expression. We go to Oregon, Wisconsin, middle school band concerts all the time and film their experiences there. And we'll put a mic on.
Oh,
Phil
right.
or Rennie.
Interesting.
And they'll go in and they'll play. And you
gosh,
get all of that insight of them and their friends talking, hanging out.
That is so funny.
My stepdad is filming us, so anything you say on the mic is hot. So it's kind of fun. It's something that you don't get to do, but it's also like a practice of sort of documentary work, right? It's like you're capturing what would happen if we spent a day with your 12-year-old. So.
Yeah, I love the fact that your kids are willing to like say, "Hey, you're being recorded right now," just to get those legalities out of the way. You kind of work that in.
They do. Yeah. I don't know if they're doing it on purpose,
being
but
wired up.
Yeah, and there's days
that's so funny.
There's days that they will do it and days that they won't. There's days that they're just not up for the idea, and that's fine. That's totally cool.
Of course,
but.
Yeah, but anyway, we can watch for your reality show coming out soon with the entire family.
We'll have to link to this.
Yeah.
It's going to be, I think it's going to be just the 4-year-old reality show.
So have you always been like this, where you're able to just find a fun way to continue building your skill sets? Have you always been filming from a young age, or how did you get into it?
Yeah, the first time I got my hands on a camera was probably freshman year in high school. VHS camera my uncle had. We went to Orlando. We went to Universal Studios and Gatorland and Disney World, or everything down there. I got to document all of it.
That was a big camera, was it?
It was a big, bulky camera, yeah.
Put on your shoulder, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And so I'm carrying around that at 14 years old and zooming in and zooming out and trying to... I think it had an autofocus feature. No, it's terrible. But what it did was it really opened my eyes to the possibility of making that into something I could do as a career. And so I think it was my junior year or senior year, maybe it was senior year in high school, I took a video class. And it was between that and a theater class. I got invited to do senior theater, and I turned it down. I really enjoyed doing theater, but I turned it down because the video seemed to be up my alley, and so I ended up doing that. And then got into college at Whitewater, ended up doing video there right off the bat. I was going to coach football or do video.
You were going to coach football.
Yeah, I was going to coach football. Well. And as you know, and some people know, my cousin is Tony Romo, who was, so football runs in the family.
I guess so. And then the convention, of course.
The convention. We do the fantasy football convention, hang out with football, athletes all weekend long.
Right.
So there's that. And on top of that, we get to work with, I've over the years, I've got to work with stars like Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers and Giannis and any of these athletes that are just, Bob Uecker, announcer for the Brewers.
Absolutely.
You get to work with these guys in Wisconsin. It's a lot of fun. But going back to college, that was where I got to really experience having fun doing the profession. I ended up doing radio, I ended up doing TV, and I ended up producing and writing my own TV shows about like late night comedy and sketch comedy. So we did that for 3 years in college, and that was a
Were
blast.
you looking at that as building a future career in video production, or were you just kind of following it because it was something you were passionate about and you were actually finding yourself being good at?
I think both.
Okay.
I think I definitely knew that I was better than most when it came to holding a camera, to editing, to even writing in some aspects. I did some news, which I didn't really enjoy a whole lot of. I do like the investigative journalism, and that's a whole nother topic, but that was not something I was interested in at the time.
Were they introducing you to several different genres of production, everything from live events, news coverage, like you said, to scripting, to even we were talking before this, you did some radio too. So were you kind of being exposed to all these different genres?
Very much so. And growing up in Racine, which has got the Chicago market and the Milwaukee markets, you're kind of sandwiched in between. So you really get a good example of what's going on there, when it comes to broadcast. And then when you get to, when I got to college, I also was involved in a group called ITVA, International Television Association. And I became the president of the college association, and took the students from production company to production company, and broadcast companies. And we got to meet a lot of people that were doing corporate video, that were doing high-end commercials. That's where I got my internship, was meeting a company called Purple Onion in Milwaukee that did, helped write, helped edit American Movie, the documentary with Mark Bochert and Michael Schenk. So it was really getting out and meeting people that were doing video on a professional basis, and I definitely saw my eyes opened up and go, oh, I could do this, I could do that, this, and I always liked the comedy aspect of things. I always liked looking at things through a less serious eye sometimes when I could.
Right. Hey everyone, just want to take a quick moment and let you know of a few ways you can help support the show. First, you can like this video and subscribe to our channel if you enjoy the content we're putting out. Share this episode with other creatives and help spread the word. Next, you can go to creativesideup.com. That'll take you over to our Ko-fi page where you have the ability to drop us a few bucks and help support independent creators like myself so we can bring you more episodes and feature even more creatives. Additionally, you can go to anchor.fm/Edgeline Studios and have access to everywhere the podcast is available. And if you'd like, you can tap the support button and become a supporter with a small monthly donation to help sustain future episodes. Finally, follow us on Instagram at CreativeSideUpPod. Join the conversation, send us a voice message. Share your story with us. We want to know, what do you do creatively and what inspires you to do it? Your message could be featured on an upcoming episode of Creative Side Up. So thank you for all your support, and now back to the show. Something I know about you, Brian, is you're great at being a long distance driver. You are someone who travels quite a bit. And you find yourself at times when you're not flying, you're actually doing long distance road trips a lot of the time. And sometimes for fun, sometimes for work. I've been fortunate enough to join you on some of those road trips, and they're always a blast. But why is it important for you to travel? What is that? It seems like something you're really interested in. Where does that come from, and how do you kind of fit that into being a creative and into your professional life as well?
Boy, I don't know. I wish I had a good saying to this, but I think like travel is sort of like the spice of life. It's the thing that adds awareness. It adds perspective. It adds creativity. It adds so many things to me. Culture. Absolutely. We were just down in Mexico for 2 weeks, a couple weeks ago, actually last week. And it added so much perspective to what we have, we have a home, right? And in our home, we have space. In Mexico, we didn't have that space. We didn't have water that we could drink because of the water quality there. There's things you can flush down the toilet. Like you can't flush the toilet paper down.
Right.
It's a dramatic change in sort of a semi-dramatic change in how you use the restroom wherever you go, especially if you have little ones.
Yeah. So wait a minute, you did or didn't use the restroom for your entire trip?
We use the restroom,
Okay.
just to clarify.
All right,
Yes.
good.
Yeah. That would be painful. But no, just seeing what people use, everyday things, everyday objects that we discard in our recycle bins that people reuse and use. It's just amazing to take that all in and know how lucky we have it. I don't think we get to say that enough to ourselves sometimes. And so there's that. I think traveling for work is great. This year, 2019, I traveled more than I ever have. I went to France and Hungary, Australia, New Zealand for work, shooting videos for corporate clients.
And most of that is for work.
That is all
your
work.
Professional work.
Absolutely. That is all work. But then we've been lucky enough to have a weekend off here and there to sort of enjoy the sights and see Budapest and see, the Paris actually was really neat. And there were protests there just as we were landing. So got to see a little bit of that.
And what's your reaction when you're seeing things like that and traveling to places, other countries? And comparing it to back home, what's your takeaway?
That's a whole separate show.
That's a whole separate.
That
well,
really is. I mean,
because it always seems like you're trying to understand something I know about you, having known you for many years, Brian, is that you're somebody who tries as hard as you can to understand where either other people or another culture is coming from, and I don't know where you get that trait from, but you're somebody who's very expressive in wanting to know the full story.
I think we have to. I think we always should be interested in what cultures, how cultures have evolved, how our culture has evolved. I think that's probably the one that I spend the most time thinking about, is how we are such a policed state sometimes. I think that's the one thing I took away from going to France and Hungary, was that we're over policed. It's actually kind of sad coming back, and having been there, spending time for a week in New Zealand too, New Zealand and Australia too, Brisbane, and in parts of New Zealand, seeing that there are very little police force there. Awareness, nobody's monitoring the traffic speeds. It's not about giving tickets. It's about enjoying life and making sure people are safe. And these are places that don't have guns. That's also a big thing there too. I'm not totally against guns, but I think that there needs to be some changes. That's a whole nother show we can talk about.
Well, I'm just
political policies.
No. That's because that builds who your character is, and that moves into your creativity and your art, when you make art. So I'm saying I know you to be somebody who's wanting to know the full story, whether it's abroad or whether it's our neighbor or our friend. You're somebody who's very caring about trying to get the whole picture.
Well,
and
what it comes down to, and I hate to interrupt you, but I think what it comes down to is our country is founded on freedom of expression and freedom of us doing what we need to do without infringing on other people.
Right.
And so I see that there are a lot of things that are happening now that are infringing on the rights and the freedoms of other people. And I don't care for it. I don't like that we just have this thing where we can our Constitution says we can have guns. Well, semi-automatic rifles or guns that kill 60 people in 2 minutes. I don't know that that's what the founders intended. There's several of these things, but it really, what you do is when you travel, you also get to see how other countries are dealing with these issues. You realize that maybe we aren't doing the things right. Maybe we aren't putting the efforts or the money into the right areas.
Right.
It's again, like that's such a generalization. It's so hard to pinpoint and go into every little thing. We'd have to have a list here, and I could go in each and every one.
Well, let's go down. This is going to be a part 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6.
This is not your. This you don't want this to be your political show here.
No. But I mean,
but I do like understand. I do like to try and understand where things are,
and not just
coming from, and where things are going.
And I mean from other people too, from your friends. You're always wanting to make sure that they're doing okay, and you're somebody who's wanting to reach out and
absolutely
understand, where people have, even if it's as simple as, hey, what have you been up to this week? Or
absolutely,
you're somebody who's always reaching out and giving as opposed to asking and taking. You're somebody who's always been that way.
Well, I just like, again, like, I think maybe it's the Catholic guilt in
That's
me.
but that's how I know
the Catholic guilt
Yeah.
in me that like I have to make sure that everybody's doing well. I think it's also being a good citizen in a small community, that we make sure that the people around us are taken care of. And living in Madison area, I saw that during the 2011 protests that, against Scott Walker, that our fine former governor, that we took care of each other. And I saw a sense of family there among 100,000 people that I've never felt before. There's a documentary on it. I shot a bunch of footage for, and it was very eye-opening. It was touching. I got to sleep in the Capitol while recording, the firefighters spending a night in the Capitol. And it just, I don't know. I don't, there is something to be said about giving or being a part of something much larger than yourself, right? And moving in the right direction.
And that moves into that's how you see telling story. It doesn't have to be a video production, but that's kind of how it's, tell me if this is accurate, but you kind of portray story in real life where you're seeing the whole picture and you're trying to kind of incorporate some of that into your artistic life when you can. If it moves you, if it's something that you want to share with the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think any of these stories that, like this documentary that I'm working on, I hope it moves some people that used to go to video stores growing up. That's definitely what happened to me, was that, growing up, I loved going to video stores. I loved spending my time there, especially in middle school, maybe even early high school, spending a lot of time in video stores, looking through the actual physical cases of the VHS, and then moving on to DVDs, but actually physically picking up that copy of Evil Dead or whatever it was, Dead Alive by Peter Jackson, whatever it was.
Troll 2,
yes, of course. Picking up that copy and going, this is when I'm going to watch this weekend. Picking out 2 or 3 movies and bringing a buddy over and say, let's get some popcorn, let's watch the film, and then it's just, we don't have those bonding experiences. We're all, a lot of times we're segregated. We're off in our our own rooms, doing our own things on our own tablets or devices. And it's great anytime that I feel like it's great. It's anytime we can get people together to have sort of a community moment. I threw a Breaking Bad El Camino party this past year, and that was fantastic. I have a few people over. We had cake. We had Blue Rock candy.
Party.
Very themed party. We dressed up for it. And
is that because just an underlying theme of more connection?
Absolutely.
Connecting?
Yeah. It's not even so much about the film. Half the film I didn't even get to watch because I was taking care of the 4-year-old trying to get her to bed. But
you still have not seen the film.
I still haven't seen the film. I hope it's good. Jesse Pinkman, I hope he survives. No, I think it's really about getting people together, and that I love having if it's just a birthday party, if it's any kind of family event, friends and family, we do it. We try to put the effort in.
By the way, your video store documentary is also, as we said earlier, you're traveling all over. So then there's another instance of you needing to share the story of not just where you're from, but also where we're all from.
Absolutely. Yeah. Connecting the dots too. It's I feel like there's a community there, and they know there's a community between the stores.
Yeah.
But they're not as connected as I thought they would be.
How so? What do you find?
They don't communicate enough, and I think there almost could be like a union of sorts or an organization. I know there's a Facebook group for them.
Yeah.
But I think that there could be a stronger unit that would make them be able to trade titles back and forth a little bit easier, and just communicate about what they're doing different to make the stores stronger.
So,
because some stores are doing very well, some stores are struggling, some stores are exceeding their expectations. Right. So it's a matter of hoping that they keep their personalities and keeping the stores alive.
And these are your perceptions that you're having from filming each and every one, and kind of being the odd man out to your own documentary. You're kind of seeing the whole picture again. You're kind of seeing just that idea alone. Like maybe there should be a video store rental union.
I do, and it's something that I've sort of formulated in the background, or it's fermenting, I should say. It's fermenting.
It's a great idea.
But there,
It's an interesting idea.
We'll see what comes of it. I once the documentary's out, I hope that we get to do some film fests and get some of the owners together and get them to chat a bit more.
Where are you with the process right now with the movie?
I'd say we're probably a third of the way done. So this week we're hoping to go to Raleigh on the back of another client project and shoot there. I still have to get out to Baltimore to be on video. I have to get to Atlanta. There's a store there.
There's a lot to be done.
There's a lot to be done. Yeah, a lot of different sites. Facets in Chicago and Movie Madness in Portland. A few places in L.A. Alamo Draft House has got a nice collection right now.
So because your documentary is about video rental stores, I know you lightly touched on it. What was it growing up for you to be interested in going to a video rental store and picking out movies? I know you briefly touched on it there, but expand on that a little bit more and what that meant to you.
Well, my uncle is probably the one that got me into watching horror films and strange films at the time, and so that I kept that up from middle school on up. But getting friends together. My friend had a basement that we would always just huddle down into, and at first it was Beta back in the day. It was the first person I knew that
you
had
might have
Beta.
to explain that a little bit.
I don't think I need to.
Okay, all right.
No,
Well,
I think people can research that. There was Beta and
Hey.
VHS. VHS won out, and you can look up that whole thing, the history of that. But we would start watching Beta, and then I think a year after there just wasn't enough Beta rental tapes out there. So then they switched over to VHS, and we at home, we bought a VHS player as well. So we'd start going to the store, and Blockbuster formed probably early to mid 80s. So we'd start going there, but it was they had a 4-star actually in Racine, which was not, I don't think it was connected, but I think it was its own standalone mom and pop joint. And so we'd go in there and pick out movies, and we got to watch all the horror films
weekly.
Basically weekly. Yeah.
So moving into making a documentary about video stores, how do you take that to the edit then? Do you already, it seems like to me anyway, that you have the story, you have it. Do you know the ending? Do you know what you need to do to tell that story in a timeline?
I think so. I think overall we have, and it started out with this since day one, 4-Star Video Heaven, which I think now it's just going to be 4-Star Video in Madison. They were the people that I wanted to follow. They were the video store, the group of, it was a co-op when this past year when I started. It was 4 people that owned it. Now it's down to 2. They've sold it off or handed it off. And so now there's 2 people. One person is from that co-op is there, and then there's another investor or business partner. And they were looking at moving. They had some troubles where they had some debt. They wanted to get out underneath this lease that they were under. And I knew that there was a story. I was going to do this. I was going to start the story a year prior to when I did this past May. I started back in 2018, but I just couldn't with work and family and children. Wasn't able to do it. Once they said on Facebook, they came out and said, we're going to be moving. We're having some issues. And that's when I was like, okay, this is the time. I have to start it now. Started following them.
Those are your filmmaker instincts kind of taking over and going, if I don't tell the story now, it's not going to happen.
It really is. And I wish I had started the year prior.
But are you looking for a jump in point? Are you looking for a point to jump in and start making it? Or
I think that was the jump in point.
Why didn't you do it a year earlier? Was it just too much going on?
Too much going on, yeah. So
Okay.
I just scratched it and I said, I can't overwhelm myself and my family and everything else to do it then.
I mean, there's a lot of time that goes into, even though you're traveling for work and making it then, there's a lot that goes into making a film, especially the one you're making.
Absolutely. And timing, timing is important. You could tell the story after something has happened, but how cool is it to be the fly on the wall while it's happening?
And the story is expanding.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. One of my favorite documentaries is behind the scenes, BTS, I think it's called BTS, it's Power to the People. I think it's Power to the People. It's the Barack Obama.
I hope it is.
It's the Barack Obama documentary. You have to look it up. It's the Barack Obama, run for the presidency the first time around. So shot in 2007, 2008. Fascinating, sort of fly on the wall. Him running for president. And it's fascinating to watch.
Right.
Had they tried to tell that story after the fact and not got into those rooms with him while he was running, or follow him in Iowa or in New Hampshire, any of those other places, it would not. I don't think it would have been nearly as interesting.
Well, that's a whole other genre. Political documentaries. They've been around for a long time, and in that sense, not that you know where the story is going to end up in a political documentary, but you do understand the potential in the beats that could or could not happen, and there's a better chance that the filmmaker can prepare for either situation in some sense.
Yeah, I mean, you do know where it ends, right? You do know that he becomes president. You do, in that scenario, same
the
thing.
Other documentary, Mitt, follows Mitt Romney. Where
Absolutely.
We know the outcome before we even start watching it.
Absolutely.
But there's still a lot of interesting elements in it that we did not see when we were living it in real life.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's fascinating to watch. Yeah.
So let's go then to the actual edit. Have you started editing your film yet? Have you started piecing parts together? It's just a lot of understanding the story and what you're going to do with it. And
well, as you know, we were talking about this. We're right now in the middle of a renovation of the office.
Mm-hmm.
We took a space that was unfinished, completely used as a woodworking room. We gutted it, and now we're putting insulation. We're going to do drywall, some wood siding. We're going to get it all set up with some flooring, and that will become the edit room.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up, because part of my idea with this show is to almost be in a different location every time.
Yeah.
I want to go to the person that I'm interviewing. I want to go to them and just be in a different space and understand that creativity can happen anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting you bring up doing a renovation of your office, because before you had, of course, your basement and your office in your basement, but you had your desk set up with your editor and everything, and some of your gear in there as well. So what are you doing to build a space for yourself where you can be inspired? I know you've had posters on the wall. You had a Tommy Wiseau poster on the wall.
It was totally, and you remember before, but it was totally slapped together. It was nothing perfect about it, which is fine. It's great. It's a great working space.
Didn't stop you from creating.
Absolutely. So we're just going to try and make it feel a little bit more of like I don't even know what the correct word is, but like you just getting in, you feel a little bit more comfortable.
Yeah.
You want to be able to.
Is that zen?
Yeah,
is that
maybe,
what it is?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm making a little workout space so I can do yoga.
You are a little zen, aren't you?
Sometimes.
You are, put that as like the meme, me saying, you are a little zen. You are, but you do have like.
I have a good friend that says that I'm the Buddha, because I can go into, I've been in a few film situations where, you go in and it's chaos. Mm-hmm. Sometimes in the middle of production, sometimes at the beginning of productions, and I'm the one that's like level-headed, and we're gonna get through this. We're gonna figure this out. Yeah. And so he's like, you're just unrattled. And
do you take those little those smelling sticks, those little incense things, and
Palo Santo sticks? Yeah, I do. We were talking about that.
Take those chakras and move them around. And
the sage. Well, there's the sage sticks. There's all sorts of different types. But Palo Santo is the one that I've been using lately. Yeah. Which is great. T-Bone Burnett was the one.
T-Bone Burnett, the famous songwriter and music producer.
Yeah. So he lights them up before.
Did you hear that he does, session? Or how do you know? Where
I was given a gift of Palo Santo at some point.
From T-Bone Burnett.
No. From Ben Fritz, who's another filmmaker.
Right. Yeah. I hope to get him on here.
Yeah, absolutely. And he just finished up Survival Guide, a film about kids surviving in the woods. And so he had given it to me for my birthday a few years ago, and I had this stick around, a couple sticks, and they smelled great. I didn't know what you do with them.
We should explain what they are. They look like little pieces of bark or something. They look like little pieces of wood, cut wood. It's not like it's a toothpick or something, but it's a little bit thicker than that.
I think they're used for ceremonial purposes, or they were. And so
you burn the ends.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it was a smell that I had recognized from years in the yoga studio when I would go and work out. Not incense. And I didn't know what it was. And now it totally makes a connection. It totally makes me relax a bit. Yeah. And so, it's going to be part of the new studio. We're going to have a little space, a little shrine or something where we can do the Palo Santo sticks off to the side.
Just have a bunch of them. You were giving them out as gifts. You gave me a pack of them.
I did, yes. Yeah. Wow. There's also, I think for the new office, having a creative space, it doesn't matter where it is. It can be it could be underneath the stairs, really.
Yeah.
You know, you could have a little space that you sit with your keyboard and typewriter. It doesn't matter, but I think it's got to be a space where you feel comfortable, where you can do your best work, where you can get rid of distractions, but also stay piped in sometimes when you have to be, right? You know, I'll have TV playing in the background because of the impeachment trials that have been on.
Jeez.
Yeah, or a football game, or
Well, I was going to say
SNL. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes you want to be inspired by something. So I know, a screenwriter friend of mine. He'll always have movies on in the background while he's writing. You know, just as something to have playing in the background. But also, other creators I know go to coffee shops,
Absolutely,
and work from there, because sometimes it's about
changing it up,
and being in a busy space.
Absolutely,
You know, and having some people like to be inspired by people watching and find that interesting, and it inspires them. And at that point, you don't have to build a room like you are. You don't have to build an office. That is your office at that point. But I think it's important. I wanted to bring up the space because I think it's important to kind of show what some people do and what some options are. And so moving into the future Brian Alberth, what's next besides bringing out the doc that you're currently working on?
Well, as of right now, it's early 2020. We're going to be working on this probably for the rest of this year. Filming and doing some of the edits for sure. And we'll see where 4-Star goes. We'll see where some of this other, the other travel plans are. What we've been trying to do, and we've talked about this previously, but we're trying to put it on the back of other clients so that we're not really taking money out of our own wallets and putting it onto this, having to book trips, that kind of thing. We're trying to do it as efficiently as possible. I also believe in practically, but I also want to be green as much as I can.
Yeah.
You know, I know the state of our planet at this point, with everything that's going on. And so I want to be conscious of that. I don't want to have to make a lot of separate trips if I don't have to. One thing I did this past year was, in 2019 was I was sitting at the airport waiting to board a plane, and they offered up, I think it was a $500 voucher to take the next flight out. And so I took that voucher so that I could jump on another flight later on.
And you got put right next to the bathroom in back.
Well, no. I still got to go.
Oh,
I got to go like later on. I went 2 or 3 hours later.
Yeah.
I still got to take
Your clients were really upset.
No. I still made, no, that's the thing. Is like you just make sure.
I'm projecting wrong.
Yeah,
okay,
no. You just make sure that you could still get there in time.
Yeah.
The whole first day was travel anyway. So it was just like, well, I'm just going to get there a little bit late. I'll still make my connection.
Sure.
Just less time. So what I'm going to do with that voucher is then take that voucher and use that for another flight to go somewhere else. So if I can get to do that 1 or 2 times, and also do a road trips to like Chicago and stuff, we'll try to keep, CO2 emissions down and do it as green as possible.
Do what you can.
And as effectively. I mean, I want to show the filmmakers can do this on, a very small budget.
Yeah.
You know?
And it doesn't hinder the quality of the film either. I think so far the stuff you've shown me has been right up there. It's looking really good.
I think it's looking pretty stellar for what we're using. Yeah.
The last thing I want to touch on before we head out here is the future of not necessarily filmmaking, but the future of the technology we're using to tell our films. So it could be anything from how you utilize social media or how you utilize either in your personal life or in your professional life, or even the transformation over the years of the gear that you've been using and how it's either helped or, some of the setbacks from it.
So you're asking more about the technology?
Whatever you want to take of it, because what I find is this show that I'm doing now, of course, we're able to set this up in your house here and do a video podcast here. And I'm going to be putting out clips on everything from YouTube to Instagram, IGTV, anywhere.
We know that technology, everything's getting smaller. Yeah. It's getting more efficient. We talk about GoPro and how you can put GoPros pretty much anywhere and they're going to be image stabilized and everything's moving in that direction. I don't think that changes anything about the storytelling aspects. They are all just tools, right? They are tools. These are tools here that we're using today. And I always try to figure out the best tool for the job, but also within a reasonable cost for what you can afford and what you think it should be. So going into the project, those are all things that you do in pre-production. But yeah.
Brian?
I don't know that I really answered anything on that last one.
No, you did. It's about, I like that these are all tools that we use.
Yeah.
And the technology is always going to move forward, but ultimately it's up to us to tell the story.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. I think it's part of the bigger existential questions about like how we tell stories and how we can relate to other people in different areas of the country or internationally, right?
Absolutely. Brian, thanks for being here.
Yeah,
and,
thanks for having me.
Well, thanks. No, I'm in your house.
Yeah, here in my house
Okay.
today, yeah.
All right. Well, we did our thing.
Creative Side Up is an Edgeline Studios production. Thanks for listening, and we hope you join us again soon.